Anxious attachment tend to self-abandon. They tend to monitor the needs of someone else. The hallmark there is inconsistency. And so a lot of codependent, I don't like the word, but codependent traits fall in that category. The other extreme is avoidant. So they had parents that weren't emotionally attuning to them. So they are not as emotionally connected as adults, but focus on success and tasks. And anxious and avoidant tend to attract each other. Being in the hospital and having anxiety attacks, and I picked up the book Facing Codependency, and that book changed my life. And it finally gave me words to what I was experiencing. But the truth is, in our psychology and our culture, the way I operated was, okay, I don't want to be needy, so I'm going to become super independent. Having a sense of security as an adult comes from secure experiences being part of your life where you've internalized them enough. So it's not something you can just give yourself. You can resource secure relationships from your past, inner anchors, and we need anchoring relationships now to help us internalize security. And as I talk about in the book and heal attachment wounds, we also need secure relationships to be able to do the work of healing with. I wouldn't say that anchoring people are necessarily introvert or extrovert. I would say anchoring people are people who have enough safety and have the neuroception of safety enough in their system to be able to have the emotional capacity to stay present and attuned with you when you're sharing and hold deep space. Fast, fast goes the anxious heart. So I think anxious and avoidant tend to move, the insecure types tend to merge and move faster. So really important that you're processing who you're dating with your anchors and going slow and keeping one foot in reality, because fantasy is very alluring. I think that having a conversation with a potential partner and asking them how do they deal with conflict, how much alone time do they need, what are their wants and needs, what patterns have they seen in their past, like having these conversations. And it's not a red flag if someone has patterns and awarenesses. It's more of a red flag if they don't have any awareness. That you explore the wheel of attachment, you start to feel into attachment experiences, that you take what you've learned from those patterns and you start to notice where they're showing up in your life. You start to change the word triggered to awaken. You start to be with sensations. You start to understand memory. There's just so much in that book that will set you to a path to healing and understanding the science, of course, and how to heal and how to start to shift these patterns to have more fulfilling relationships.
Welcome to your journey to find true tranquility on the Tranquility Magazine podcast. Please become a subscriber now to help us create more engaging and uplifting content for viewers and listeners like you. With your host, Jasmine Maya Rice. Today's episode featuring, for more information, visit our website at tranquilitymagazine.com.
So this morning, I am so happy to have my guest today, Jessica Baum. She is an LMHC, is a licensed therapist and the author of Anxiously Attached, as a founder of Relationship Institute of Palm Beach and the Conscious Relationship Group. She supports individuals and couples to form healthy, long-term relationships with online coaching and transformational courses worldwide. And now she is the author of Safe, an attachment-informed guide to building a more secure relationships. Welcome to the show. I'm happy to have you.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm excited.
Yeah, so I'm always asked the first question is, what is your current mantra or state of mind?
Yeah, I know. I don't know that I have a particular mantra, but lately I've just been so grateful that I can access gratitude. And I just wake up in the morning and sometimes I put on a playlist that sounds cheesy, or I just I've been in places in my life where I couldn't access gratitude because I was suffering too much, and now I can really feel into all the things in my life that are going well and really feel grateful. And so my mindset is just a lot of gratitude lately for where I am and the opportunities that I've had in my life and the people that I have in my life.
Mm. It's a really important factor, as you said, to get there, like to realize how hard you worked in order to get to the fact that you can appreciate that you have the awareness to actually have gratitude for tiny things and getting your mind in that space and doing all the work, as you said, suffering and like, all of those elements that are part of you to see the lighter end of the spectrum.
I so appreciate you saying that because I can't stand it when people are like, have gratitude. It's like we have to be exactly where we are, especially if we're doing the work. And it's not about always accessing that. I just feel like maybe I'm in a phase in my life where I can access that more easily because of what I walk through. And not, that's different for everyone and where we're at. And there were periods where I could not access gratitude because I was suffering. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's very like an illusion of grandeur. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna wake up every day and be super gratitude and like, mindful and shiny and bubbly. And you're like, no, no. It was like,
I had to go through a lot of fire to get to the place where I can feel grateful right now. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I applaud you and I totally agree that it took me a lot of, as we say, and everybody, I'm doing the work. I'm doing the work. And every day I'm doing the work and hope the work that gets better. But tiny appreciation for self and day and like experiences are kind of all of those tiny moments that you have that air that like, happy to be here. Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I am a big fan, as I mentioned before, that I picked up your Anxiously Attached book. And this was when it published during the pandemic. And I was I knew about the wording before. And I think it was so informative with all of your patients that you've worked with and examples that kind of lead you down to be like, oh, I'm dating that. I was that. I have that. Oh, wow. How can I work on that? I can fix it? All these questions pop up in ways that I was going on hikes. I was pissed. And I was like, I'm going on hikes. I'm pissed and I'm dealing with somebody that's absolutely an avoidant. But I've been both. I've been the anxious attachment style, I've been the avoidant, and now there's a third and more. So I want you to explain to everybody and secure attachment style, which we all dream about it. But what are these, and can you educate us all a little bit as an informative tactic of how these develop and what they are?
Yeah, sure. I mean, kind of starting from the beginning, but attachment theory's been around for a really long time, since the 1950s. It's very well researched and it's a very well researched science. And it's basically studying how an infant is adapting to their primary caregiver and their environment. And I talk a lot about safe. I talk about the experiences inside a baby or a young person when they have a more anxious parent or a more avoidant parent, on how we start to embed patterns within our nervous system, our belief system around connection and lack thereof really early on. And so if we had a lot of emotional attunement and emotional presence and pretty good co-regulation, we develop a sense of safety within.
Mm.
And if we have parents that are struggling with anxiety or avoidance or dysregulation and can't hold that emotional presence for us, we internalize them and we create patterns in relating to them that get stored in our body. And then later in life, when we're in other close relationships, for me, it showed up a lot in romantic relationships, but it can show up in any close relationship. These embedded patterns of either anxious or avoidant or disorganized surface. And
Mm.
I talk about in safe that we're never really just one attachment style. Like it's so nuanced. I talk about the wheel of attachment, which is really important to start. Safe really takes attachment to the next level. So
Mhm.
you'll understand how you can develop each one of these patterns and where in your family system you have different relationships that embed different patterns inside of you. And in your adult life, later in the book, you're kind of taking those patterns and you're looking at, like, what am I repeating in my adult life? And so, for those of you who are listening that know nothing about attachment, people with anxious attachment tend to self-abandon. They tend to monitor the needs of someone else. The hallmark there is inconsistency. And so a lot of codependent, I don't like the word, but codependent traits
Mm,
fall in that category. The other extreme is avoidant. So they had parents that weren't emotionally attuning to them. So they are not as emotionally connected as adults, but focus on success and tasks. And anxious and avoidant tend to attract each other.
mhm,
And then there's fearful, but the scientific name is disorganized. And that happens to babies that are in terror. Either their parent is so angry or rageful or so neglectful that the baby has no one to orient to. And we can have disorganization. And I talk about my pockets of disorganization that came up in my life. We can have pockets of any one of these. And of course, some of us have experiences of security too. So
mm.
with one parent, you can have anxiety and security. So it's very nuanced. And I think the general public is starting to understand the categories. And I think what SAFE does is it, like, blows that away in terms of understanding, really having like a deep understanding from the inside out, from the
Mhm.
neurobiological lens of how all these patterns kind of live in us and how different situations can bring up these adaptive strategies.
Yeah, you mentioned in your book that it's kind of becoming topical, that people are aware of this attachment style. And out of the gate, for me, I was absolutely an avoidant. I was work focused, I was gear focused. We're talking about college time. I was very much into it in a way that you wanted to be receive the gratification that you didn't receive as a child, or the applause that you were waiting for, or the attention that you didn't receive. You're like, do work all the time so I can, be appreciated even by your colleagues or your friends. And I was avoiding relationships at all costs. So it's like, I don't need to be hurt today. Like, I don't know if I like you. I don't know if I want to be. Like, I don't want to be controlled. I don't want to be codependent, which is a very interesting word that I had to learn later means something else. So you want to describe what your version of codependency is?
I hate the word
Yeah, me
codependency.
too.
Yeah, I mean, I talk about an anxiously attached opening, like being in the hospital and having anxiety attacks. And I picked up the book Facing Codependency, and that book changed my life. And it finally gave me words to what I was experiencing. But the truth is, in our psychology, in our culture, the way I operated was, okay, I don't want to be needy, so I'm going to become super independent.
Mm-hmm.
That really hurt me because if you think codependency, like, we need to be interdependent. And I think the messaging around codependency is so misused.
Yes.
Think that anxious attachment actually fits that demographic a lot more. And it's not about being ashamed that we are needy or that we have needs. It's about understanding that we didn't have people who could meet our needs in the first place. And we intend to attract partners who can't meet our needs to reinforce that. So I had to learn actually to depend on the dependable people, be super independent, and get vulnerable in order to heal both my anxious and avoidant patterns. And like you, I had both inside. And so I
Mm.
talk about that. We have more than one. My primary one in romantic relationship was anxious.
Oh yeah, I
It
got
showed up differently.
there. No, I totally understand you in the way that I was first informed of that word, and then I evolved to do a lot of the work as we've been talking about what it actually meant. And I realized that I can be in an interpretation of codependence, but I was dating someone that I thought was codependent. And that's a version of controlling and overwhelming, that I didn't have space, I didn't have time by myself. It was too immersive, that I had no me time at all. So that is what I thought codependency means, that you're like a succubus, that you're attached to me and I can't get rid of you. Like, not a child, but a grown adult. And then it's alternative in a perspective that it's also like needing attention and gratification from me, from the other person. That is a catalyst for anxious attachment styles. When the other partner is an avoidant and without the emotivity to have the deep conversations or relatability. And I would give a broad spectrum that women and men do operate differently on their emotional dialogue. So being aware of that is kind of part of kind of understanding how a straight person and want to relate to a male counterpart, it can be a different space to figure out how to have those conversations. So in this, you demonstrate what is a secure attachment. You do explain kind of the nuances of being a child and how that has been interpreted as a child. So give an example of what a secure attachment or some secure understandings would be.
I think secure attachment, the foundation of secure attachment is when we have parents that are emotionally present and with us, reflecting our uniqueness, attuning to us enough of the time, and they have a sense of safety within their neuroception and within their body to be present, that we can internalize them. And so the baby or the child walks around the world feeling safe because of the internalization process.
Mm-hmm.
And so people who have security don't sit and think, oh, what is security? They just feel more secure in the world.
Yeah.
People who are more insecure walking around with abandonment wounds, or they're just more insecure in the world because they internalized parents that didn't have the felt sense of safety.
Mm-hmm.
So, a lot of what SAFE talks about is earned security and how can we go from insecurity to earned security. And that's through a re-internalization process as an adult through what I call anchoring experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And that very much is a process. Having a sense of security as an adult comes from secure experiences being part of your life where you've internalized them enough. So it's not something you can just give yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You can resource secure relationships from your past, inner anchors,
Mm-hmm.
and we need anchoring relationships now to help us internalize security. And as I talk about in the book and heal attachment wounds, we also need secure relationships to be able to do the work of healing with.
Yes. So you mentioned in SAFE about the idea of anchoring, which you're giving kind of examples in a secure attachment style as your youth and what you were related to as a child, and you had a safe attachment style, meaning that you were not hyper anxious when your mother departed for about 15 to 20 minutes. You knew that they would come back. Where an anxious child would be like, everybody's left me. Like, there's no one here. Like, they're never going to come back. Like, that is the difference in the interpretation as a child of having the abandonment wounds of being left for a long time that no one picks you up, or something in that regard that starts to create these in our neurosphere of connections. And you do talk about the importance of anchoring and having anchors. So describe a little bit more about what is an anchor and how some ways to create this anchoring or things or appreciation for people you have like this.
Yeah, like I was first comment on the first one when you're a baby and your parent walks away and you feel anxious. Like I was an adult and my partner would go away and I would feel anxious. It's not like this part of you goes away when you're
Yes.
an adult. This part of you is very much alive in you. So if you were an anxious or had an anxious experience when you were a child, when you're an adult, that same part of you is going to get activated in your relationships. And that's like a big part of the healing process. I wouldn't say that anchoring people are necessarily introvert or extrovert. I would say anchoring people are people who have enough safety and have the neuroception of safety enough in their system to be able to have the emotional capacity to stay present and attuned with you when you're sharing and hold deep space. And I talk about the science of co-regulation and the science around how we store memory in our body and
Mhm.
how when we have someone else, like for example, if you were my anchor and if you were present and safe, if your nervous system was in a ventral state of safety,
Mhm.
relatively most of the time, that's a scientific word, my nervous system is going to pick up on that, and as we start to be in connection together, your sense of safety lends a window
Mhm.
for me to regress and get dysregulated and to access wounds And so it's your anchoring in emotional presence and real safety. Like, so your nervous system isn't going into sympathetic. You're not getting scared with me, but
Mhm.
you're able to hold me in my experience. When we have people who can really do that, and this should be the job of a therapist, but I actually teach people how to do it with friends and co-anchors so that not everybody can afford to get a therapist, and not every therapist can do this.
Mhm.
But as you're working through the book and as you're going into implicit memory and building interoception and going into your body, bringing it to an anchoring person helps you re-experience what you've gone through and move it from your body up into your right hemisphere and integrate it into your left. So there's a whole science around the neuroception of safety and how we lend each other these safe places through our nervous system, and how that sense of safety, which can't be faked, encourages our own inherent blueprint into healing.
Mhm.
So if you were to hold a lot of safety for me and I didn't experience that, and we met, first it would feel weird and uncomfortable because I didn't experience it. But
Mhm.
the next thing that comes with safety is vulnerability.
Mhm.
So very hard for a lot of people
Oh
to,
yeah.
yeah, me too. As an anxiously attached someone, is it's also very hard, but so safety brings vulnerability. It brings Brene Brown's work. And then once we have vulnerability together, we can access more of our attachment wounds. We can re-experience them and have what we call disconfirming experiences. And we really can heal what we've stored in the body in these types of relational experiences.
It's really important to find, someone that has the capacity, as, topically says, holding the space without judgment, criticism, or I had to learn as like as a people pleaser before in the fact is that I can be there, but I can't fix what you don't want to fix and I can't change what you don't want to change. So I'm just going to sit here and listen and then I'm not going to take it all with me. So being an empath, you're like I need to like you can dump it on me and then I need to get it out. So I was like, okay, we had a nice experience. You feel better. I'm going to go, like wash and cleanse as any way you can do it for mentals and like meditation, journaling that you mention a lot in your books and actual things that you can work on as an alternative to anchoring as we can find a person. And you're like, very much true that a therapist, I have one, they're expensive and not for everyone, but it doesn't mean that you can't find someone that is like, I'm lucky enough to have a friendship that I've had since I was 3, and she's my anchor point. She would always be there. She has no judgment. She's seen me at my worst and my best, and long-term friendships are golden. And, harboring these are immensely powerful as we get older and seeing the different phases and different people that we are and different viewpoints. It's always there is a safe place in there, but also for everyone to find someone that is safe for you to share the deepest problems, wounds, anxiety, and difficulties. And you're right, because I've been, as yourself, you talk about, I'm a hyper independent. It's a hyper independent that takes you a long time that the anxiety started to bloom for me when I was inside of a relationship. And then I was dating someone that was there, but wasn't really there. You talk about it in your own relationship in the fact that you felt more alone while being in it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the hardest point when you're inside a relationship that I feel more alone than when I was, by myself because I'm used to being by myself, but I need something from someone else that's not in their wheelhouse or their abilities. So I would suggest as people going into the concept of dating, just because we talk about a lot of relationships and we can heal a lot of wounds by being in one. And for those of us out there that are not really, we're looking to the concept and we know who we are, right? If you have anxious attachment style or you both, or where you are in your life's journey, if you've done some of the work and kind of where it sits. And if you're sitting on it at a date and you're dating someone for a couple months, what are some tells or maybe some awareness that you need to put in place before the relationship blossoms any further that you can have just a good, maybe good dialogue or such?
Yeah, I mean, I think Fast, fast, fast goes the anxious heart. So I think anxious and avoidant tend to move, the insecure types tend to merge and move faster. So really important that you're processing who you're dating with your anchors and going slow and keeping one foot in reality because fantasy is very alluring. I think that having a conversation with a potential partner and asking them how do they deal with conflict, how much alone time do they need, what are their wants and needs, what patterns have they seen in their past, like having these conversations. And it's not a red flag if someone has patterns and awarenesses. It's more of a red flag if they don't have any awareness, they don't have any, the perfect childhood almost feels like a more of a red flag to me, more of a person that's more in denial of any kind of relational issues versus, yeah, this is how I need a lot of space in relationship and I really value independence. And we know, okay, maybe just because they're avoidant doesn't mean they wouldn't mean a bad partner, but they wouldn't be a great match for someone who needs a lot of together time, or making sure that your values align. And again, going really slow. I think rupture and repair is important. I think when you're starting a relationship, learning, can I fight with this person? And when we fight, can we rupture and repair in a way where we get closer after there's discord? And I think and I really talk about that in the book because that's actually rupture and repair is very important. Healthy relationships are not ones without conflict.
Mm-hmm.
They're ones that miss each other and come back into connection and usually deepen into intimacy through rupture and repair. So, all of that is really, really important. And you mentioned that I felt really alone in my relationship, and I was really alone in my relationship, but a big part of safe is helping you break the paradigm that I recreated my childhood dynamics in my adult relationship. So it became less about him and his protective behaviors and more about, oh my God, this is waking up in me, adaptive strategies and feelings from my earliest childhood experiences. And I was able to have like this dual experience where I could tend to my experiences and see my partner as very wounded and just doing what they could to survive. So part of the book is helping readers get out of like trauma loops or
Mm-hmm.
trauma bonds by helping you kind of connect to your original wound and putting some space between what might be repeating or happening in the here and now and kind of doing the work to say, oh my God, let's go to the origin of this. Let's see if we can heal the
Mm-hmm.
origin of this.
So wise that it took me some time to figure that out in my own regard, in a way that I'm like, I'm mad, but I don't really know why I'm upset. And I'm trying, and I'm not like, at this point in all the work that I was like, I'm not going to lash out. I've never been I hate conflict. It's like conflict is my least favorite thing. I was like, okay, but I don't really want to be that person that I let hurtful things stumble out of my mouth without really stepping back and taking a moment and going, okay, I need a break. I'm not saying that I'm departing from this conversation, but I need to think about where it's coming from. Where is the root of this issue and how did I get here? That is it something you are doing that is igniting that? Or is it something that I'm actually carrying with me? And how do I resolve those?
And it's usually both.
Mm-hmm.
So it's usually like this behavior that you're doing is lighting me up.
Mm-hmm.
And when we know that we're being lit up a lot sensationally in the body, we know that's memory. And I've experienced this before. So probably the wound of what's being lit up in your body is so big because the original wound was big. And
Mm-hmm.
now that this person is doing this behavior, I want to blame them completely. But
Yeah.
part of the work is to say this already lived in me. Like
Mm-hmm.
I had an experience of neglect as a child. My mom was preoccupied with work. My dad struggled with substances. I had a lot of neglect. When
Mm-hmm.
I was in my last relationship, when his fear got kicked up and it became a workaholism and he kind of neglected me,
Mm-hmm.
I first blamed him, but then I was able to say, oh my God, he's in a wounded state trying to deal with what he's dealing, and I'm trying to reach for him. He's not available, just the same way I would reach for my parent. But it
Mm-hmm.
helped me break this need to have to make him show up in a certain way. And it helped me start to realize that this is actually my familiar. And so a lot of SAFE talks about how we magnetize people into our life that feel familiar to us. They feel
Mm-hmm.
rich. And we recreate relational dances from earlier in our life and we get stuck in them. They
Mm-hmm.
literally get stuck in them because that young part of me is like, I only have my dad and my mom, and I'm gonna keep trying, keep trying, keep trying.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm in my adult relationship, that same part of me is activated. She's gonna keep trying until the adult in me can say, no, your partner's really not available right now for his own reasons.
Yeah.
You need to turn to some available people and
Mm.
be with what's going on inside you. And that was a game changer in terms of breaking trauma bond.
Mm. I mean, it's so important to have that awareness, first of all, to kind of see it in a external viewpoint that you're looking at it going, why is this familiar? You're so much spot on. And it's like we mirror our parents in a relationship factor. I got so annoyed when I was like, I'm dating my dad all the time. I was like, can I just, no, no more dad. Like, I was like, I love my dad. He's great, but we have our own issues. I don't need to relive these issues with the ones that I'm attracted because they're so charming and they're so nice. And then just like, where did you go? Nowhere. Oh, I was like, okay, we're done. Apparently we're done. All right, well, that's familiar, too familiar. Like, but in order to like break the loop of the trauma bond and the cycle of familiarity, we keep manifesting these people to be in our life. And I was like, when is enough for you? Do you figure out the takeaways now, or are you just gonna do it again?
No, well, and what it's really asking for you is that part of you is trying to resolve this with a person who they can't resolve it with.
Mm-hmm.
So to break that, we have to be with the original pain of having a father who might have been charming and disappearing. And so to be with that very young part of you and really embody what it felt like to have a dad who maybe wasn't really available, right? And what
Yeah.
it feel like in your body and really spend a lot of time there. Because when we can grieve what we didn't get and when we can embody the original experience, she's not going to go out and try to recreate it with someone who's incapable and up in the way that she needs. She actually needs to be with the fact that that person didn't show up in the way
Yeah.
that she needed in order to break the loop. I needed to be with the fact that my dad didn't show up. This is what it felt like. And really embody that experience with support to not reach out to unavailable people anymore, you know? And so there is a way to break it, but you have to be with the original embodied experience.
True. When I was listening to your book, Anxiously Attached, and I go on hikes all the time because it helps me. It helps, like it's a walking movement meditation. I just move through it, whatever it is that it pops up in some ways that I spend a lot of time as both books are talking about spending time with your childhood self. Like I hang out with my kid self all the time.
That's great.
I was like, she just wants to do what she wants to do. And normally it's like fun things. She's like, no work today. I want to go to the ocean. I was like, is that available as an adult? You're like, can I do that? I was like, maybe I can swing it later. I was like, because I am at that point where I don't have kids myself, so I have more time to sit with my own childhood self. But kids will also teach you that fun lifestyle and reminders in their own viewpoints of being juvenile in ways that you go back to. But I'm going to be the better parent. Not saying our parents all have issues, all families have issues, everyone has traumas and difficulties, but how long can you get to the point where they're not with you all the time? To see someone else is like, oh, okay, maybe you're unfamiliar vibrationally, energetically, and you're probably a secure attachment style upbringing. And I'm like, oh, you feel uncomfortable for me.
Really.
Yeah, like I don't know if we're gonna get along because you seem very solid and secure, and I'm like flighty and all over the spectrum.
I mean, the way that I've worked through that is through my own anchors, being secure enough,
Mm,
not romantically, but enough and showing enough in my life where my nervous system starts to register that as the new baseline for me. So if you're resonating with what you just shared and you're listening and you're like, yeah, the nice guy or the boring girl where there's no spark, try to form friendships and anchoring relationships and therapy if you can afford it with people who are secure so
Mhm.
that your nervous system can start to experience the vulnerability. And I think for me, like being in reality with them, it's tough, right? But like
Yeah.
start to be with that till the point where you're doing that so much. Sorry, my dog is like building a bed over there.
Oh, got animals. There's social supports.
Oh yeah, it's a total anchor for me. But
Mhm.
that you're doing that enough, you're in the presence of someone who is secure, you're doing the work where your nervous system's starting to register, oh my God, this person keeps showing up in their presence, keeps having non-judgmental holding, keeps listening to me, where I need to start registering that this is love. And that this is love. And I might need to first go through the process of saying, I've never received this before. So there's a whole
Mhm.
grief process around like no one ever has attuned to me in this way before.
Yeah.
And and then as you're being held in that way, you're not being fixed, you're not being rescued, but you're just being joined. Eventually your nervous system will get used to that. And then it might start to attract more of that. And eventually that joining starts to feel easier and more familiar, and that becomes your new baseline. And that's how we kind of reorient. That's one of the things. We're also internalizing that person or people as well.
I mean, it's so important to kind of get there in a way that you're saying baseline, or I say sometimes window of tolerance. I'm out of my window of tolerance. I'm inside my window of tolerance. Like I'm at my baseline. In order to figure out what that is a difficult journey in itself. Like to figure out when you're regulating yourself that you feel and understand what is safety and security when you didn't have those options, and figuring out as an adult kind of where your baseline is already. But I always remind a lot of my friends because I've been this person, and mostly when I was young and I had like a codependent relationship where he was jealous of everyone, including my friendships, that it got really small to the point where I wouldn't be able to do or socialize with anyone, which is it wasn't malice. It was just an awareness that I was caving in my people pleasing factor to, submit to the idea that I was trying to please a thing that I can't solve. And in that, like I always remind people inside of a relationship, and you call it an anchor, do not lose these people around you. Spend quality time, because if you invest so much of your energy into one single person in this relationship, all the other people that you may need, if the relationship grows great, congratulations, I'm happy for you. It's harder enough to get them and keep them together, but it's also you need those external conversations or the secure elements or just some fun and laugh, because your one person can't be all in and everything for everyone. It just doesn't, in my experience, work that way.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I always say like it's like a chair. If you have one leg that you're resting on and that leg goes out, you're in a lot of trouble, but you really want to have like more pillars of people to depend on. However, early wounding and bonding and enmeshment and all of that, like for those listening, like if you're in a relationship and it's quote unquote, I'm not gonna use, let's say there's more attachment dynamics going on and there's fear at play,
Mm-hmm.
it's very hard to leave the relational energy and go out and
Oh,
connect.
yeah. Yeah.
So, like telling someone, oh, you need more relationships when you're in not feeling safe in your primary one is a hard thing to do because our neurobiology wants to focus on fixing and feeling safe in that one, and
Mm-hmm.
we zero in. So, yes and no. And yeah, I mean, my path, which is not everybody's path out, was to not go to my primary romantic relationship and to lean on many anchors, which was foreign to me because I had
Mm-hmm.
spent most of my life in romantic relationships and that was where I felt safest. So
Mm-hmm.
it's actually a journey to make that transition, in my opinion. It was for me, and I totally welcome romantic relationship and in the beginning you do spend a lot of time with them, but in a healthy, more secure relationship, first of all, it goes slower and then you integrate them into your life. You don't let them take you out of your life. You integrate them into your friends and into your community. And maybe you spend more time with them, but you're not leaving the healthy things that are anchoring you before you met them, which is so much easier said than done when the neurochemicals are flying off in your brain and this new person
Mm-hmm.
is making you feel so good.
Important, and I totally understand. I've been in long-term relationships shortly by myself for a while, and then I always keep my friends with me. And you are right that you include these people. Slow burn is a topical phrasing. You include them slowly into your existence and, introducing them to your world, environment, connections, things like that, because there is a level of understanding of some things won't transpire into the new collaboration in a relationship, but other things will, and new things will maybe bloom or take a different direction. But also, as you say, having pillars and understanding who those people are that won't they will weather the storm and the transitions, and to make sure that they're there with you, because you're right. You don't need everyone. I'm not saying running away from a angry fight to go complain to your girlfriends because you want to vent, but also spending quality time with people that you have similar interests. Like, example wise, I would say, dating someone that has no interest in museums, and then you have good friends that will go and take you, so you don't have resentment blooming because you wanted someone that doesn't like to do that, or just a hobby that you don't have in common, or something as that you're not losing something that brings you joy inside of a relationship because this person doesn't do that. um
Yeah, no, 100%. That's, I would say, but I would say early wounding, we tend to project a lot and depend a lot on that one person. So, yeah, like
mhm.
learning that it's safe to actually get different needs met by different people is moving towards more security. And the safer you feel, the more you allow yourself and your partner that space. And if you don't, it just means there's not enough safety in the relationship.
Mm. So you bring up conflict as dichotomy of, now you're, in my experience, I would say now you're in a relationship. We love the honeymoon phase. Everything is bubbly, everything is great. We have so much fun. We're enjoying, the chemistry is bubbling. We just can't get enough of each other, especially for anxious avoidance. We can be like squished like magnets. And then conflict arises for the first time and you have an issue. Maybe make it a smaller one. Just something annoys you, like they're late. That's a boundary for me. You show up late when I kind of casually mentioned it before, but you're obscenely late, non-informative, and I've been waiting for an hour for you to meet me for dinner. And then you arrive and you don't even apologize. So this is the blooming of a very soft, it was soft like argument. So, what are some examples and ways that you suggest for handling something like this?
Yeah, I mean, I think this could be handled a lot of different ways, but turning towards your partner and saying what gets wakened in you when your partner doesn't show up on time. I'm sure all the abandonment stuff slowly starts to creep in. More importantly, I'd also say get curious as to what's going on in your partner, that where they might be struggling to get to places on time, and can they be open and vulnerable and have the humility when approached to say, yeah, this is something I struggle with. And and I think conflict is a lot easier when we have the humility to say, you know what? You're right. That must have felt really shitty that I showed up half an hour late. And this is what was going on in my world. But just being able to say, like, your feelings matter and you have a right to be upset that I'm not here. And I'm curious as to what it brings up in you. And can you be curious as to why punctuality or whatever is a struggle for me? And if I can say, I don't know why it's a struggle, but it's been a struggle, well, is it something you're willing to work on? Is it something you're willing to look at? Because being punctual happens to be something that's important to me. Can we meet somewhere in the middle, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not expecting someone who has a pattern of being late to be on time for you and then making their lateness about their lovability.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we get into trouble. It's kind of like, no, this is their pattern. It's not even about me.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not make it about me and let's get curious on each side around what it brings up. And if you can really do that, you can actually get closer together. But that takes humility. So if shame gets kicked up, it's very hard. We need to have a lot of humility to say, wow, you know what? It makes sense that you feel that way. It really does. And this is what I'm struggling with. And then we can go, okay, my feelings do matter.
Hmm. Yeah, it's important for clarity and honesty up front. And as you said, to reframe it to an exploration on this person. Why would you be late? Are you okay? Like, is there an issue? Like, did something happen? And if, depending, like, you get really good at reading tells in like people's energetics, like you look overwhelmed right now. Like I'm upset because it's my anxiety, but we'll address it at one point. But like, let's, go into the process of the other person needing some support as well, because maybe they saw something on the way, or the car didn't work, or the phone was off, or anything like that. It could be a myriad. But when you're anxious and those moments happen that are boundary ones for you without having the conversation about it at all, and they did one of your triggers, and you're like, okay, how do I address it by lowering the temperature in my own self to be more open?
And
But
I think that's a good example. Like if you're really triggered when someone's late, that's probably your abandonment wound
Mhm,
as well. And really looking at that. I mean, that used to be classically me. It's not me
mhm.
anymore. And I have definitely worked through that one. So I can totally relate.
Oh yeah, I mean, I live in Los Angeles and LA County. Everybody's late all the time. It drives me nuts. But also, I'm timely on purpose. It's like my detriment that I arrive too early. I'm like, oh yeah, it's because also when you do live things, you're like, I have to be there early to prep it, and I don't want to be late because you can't. Like, so it makes me a very unusual one in this area, that everybody has an excuse why they're late. But it also, for me, goes back to my roots and how my upbringing and where it came from, to address it before. And as you talked about of your books, address the situation before the situation transpires later, that this is a boundary, that I'm not trying to control you, I'm informing you. Because boundaries and expectations, dangerous dance sometimes.
Well, yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think, this is complicated because if it's
Yeah.
in primary relationship and it keeps activating you, you both have work to do. But I have friendships in my life where I know that they're not going to show up on time and they're pretty chaotic.
Mm-hmm.
They're not my anchors, first of all. And I love them and I don't expect them to be different or changed for me.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of understand where I'm at and I get to choose whether or not I want to engage in that. And, I have one friend who cancels a lot and I just don't depend on the same way with those people, but I appreciate other qualities of them. So I think changing your expectations, but I would say like primary or anchoring relationships, it's important that they're consistent and attuned and they show up and that they're available because that's how we build secure attachment. So it's really important to have those conversations with the people that you're actually really depending on.
And that's key right there. As you work for, like, everybody, relationships in my mind takes a broad scope. Friendships, colleagues, everything is under the umbrella of a version of a relationship. But inside of that, a secure attachment style is not for me, that I would pick someone that's flighty and never punctual and never on time, because I feel disvalued by your ability. That, and I'm not mad at you, but I know what you're already offering. That I'm like, okay, do I have that time if you cancel on me beforehand, that I have a whole day that I plan to be spending time with you. And I love the engagement, but it's also like that boundary concept that I'm not trying to control. I was informing, but I also understand that I have to find a balance for my own, like, awareness, so it doesn't harbor resentment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we have to meet people where they're at and we have to have difficult conversations and we have to be realistic with people. Like I have one friend to think that she's ever going to show on time would be unrealistic, you know?
Hmm. We always have those. And I always say, like, I don't care if you promise me that you're going to go, but just let me know at least 20 to 48 hours would be great. 24 before, not 2 hours before the time period, because I can do something else. It gives me enough of a buffer that I'm like, I'm okay if you say you can't do it, but I just need a little bit more of a push time so I can do something else or plan accordingly. But in this, the idea of getting into what you do already as your conscious relationship groups and your couples dichotomy, what are some great practices or things that people can work on by themselves, having this type of group that they can take away to kind of work on a little bit?
Well, I'm gonna say, like, if you're listening and you're interested in the book, there are somatic practices within the book that I recorded separately. And this book is meant to help you do the work with any companion. So, like, not that you have to come to my practice and be with one of my therapists and work with your attachment style in that way, but that that you explore the wheel of attachment, you start to feel in attachment experiences, that you take what you've learned from those patterns, you start to notice where they're showing up in your life. You start to change the word trigger to awaken. You start to be with sensations. You start to understand memory. There's just so much in that book that will set you to a path to healing and understanding the science, of course, and how to heal and how to start to shift these patterns to have more fulfilling relationships. I put a lot into the book. So I would definitely, obviously, I'm not just trying to sell the book. I'm just saying that there's a lot in the book that are like real practical exercises. And one of them is building interoception. So building the ability to go into our body and get in touch with different streams of information, which is really important. And I would say if you're listening and you're like, oh, I have attachment wounds and I need to do work, you can't heal attachment wounds through talk therapy. So you need to have anchors or therapists who work with holding experiences that live in your body. Just talking about it, it helps us understanding. Like, listen, I've written 2 books. I've intellectualized the shit out of things. But if you really want true transformation, you need to seek anchors that and people that are able to hold the experiences that are living in your body. And I think that's really important information because I think so many of us can understand attachment theory, we can make sense of it, but to heal it is the next level. And that's really what I'm providing in this book is how do not only are what are your attachment patterns, like what is the healing process?
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's the pinnacle part of safe and why it's so engaging. But it's difficult on a conversation like this to go full transparency because I already was advocating your previous book, and this one I am like, my anxiety is also excited. I was like, it's not anxiety, it's excitement. But I also think that it's important for you and anyone out there to kind of work through your process, that you're not projecting your inadequacies on someone else if you don't know what they are and don't know how to find your pillars or your baseline to get engaged and kind of spend time with self to understand who you are and what you need and what you want. And you said it before when you're, with a partner. I have to be honest that in a lot of concepts I have approached, there is a pillar that I have seen that a lot of men do not know how to answer that question. There's nothing wrong with it. I think women, we spend way more time doing our work and like figuring things out. And that's a statistical average, but it's also a thing that asking what they want, give them time to figure out what that actually is. And if you preface that question already, it's a lot like to respond, to understand, but also understanding what you want and what you need and what is worth like standing up for, what's worth an argument, what's not worth an argument. And but also being you inside of all of that, I think is very pinnacle. And your step-by-step exercises and, meditation you mentioned and journaling, there are, the starting courses that a book will give you the guidance to start the journey, where if you can't afford a therapist, you still can find the healing resources that you need. So I have 2 questions always at the end. The first one is, what is the best advice you've ever received?
It wasn't so much the best advice, but I think when I was working with my mentor, Badi Mananak, who has helped me with the book, I think I realized through studying trauma on such a deep level that most people are doing the best that they can.
Mm.
Even with their behaviors and things that you think are going on, people are doing what they know. If they knew differently or were more healed, they probably would respond differently, but most people are just don't doing what they know. And it's just it's a level of compassion that I have now for human beings
Mhm.
and all of our complexities and just knowing that like most of us are surviving and some of us are thriving and I feel like I'm thriving now, but for those that are really surviving, they're doing the best that they can. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, for a long time, when the idea of self-forgiveness and forgiveness in general, I was working through, I kept saying to myself a phrase that I did the best I could at the time that was with the tools I had. And you can change it to they. And they did the best they could at the time that they had with the tools they have at that point. Because everyone, we'd hope, evolves and changes and grows and blossoms into a like the best version of themselves through this journey of life. But understanding that, people are just doing what they can do, and you don't have to take most of it personally, but just understand that you're part of this too. You have your own mess ups and faults and errors and, things that you could said better or done better. And, but if you spend too much time thinking about it, you self, you know, construct. You're like, your anxiety starts to peak, and then you're like, okay, good, I'm good now. What is the best takeaway from the hardest lesson you've ever learned?
I think leaving the relationship that I was in as an anxious attachment person who had a tremendous amount of work, and I have full understanding of this now, is that you can't make someone else do the work if they don't have the capacity or the desire. And I think because you can love someone so much, but you have to let go of your need for someone else to evolve with you, which is very hard when you're in partnership. So that was like a hard lesson for me. It was a hard lesson for me. Not only that, because so many people come to me personally for transformational experiences. They
Mhm.
come to me for help. I have such intense sessions. I go super deep. And to have or be in a relationship where you love someone and they don't want that, but that's literally what you do for a living and you know all this, it was like the hardest thing to let go of my desire to evolve with this other human and just continue to do the work myself.
Yeah, it's emotionally heartbreaking in ways that I feel motively for your journey and what it does. And when you find like you have all the great points with someone and all the great understandings and you love them truly, but the paths don't align. And like you would lose something that you're so excited about to share with them or be part of them and have them like, because it's part of what you do, your work, your purpose, all those things. And then you want to like share them all or but they're just on a different direction. It's like two trains at an intersection, but they're not going on the same path. And then you have to do those wise choices to be aware that maybe this train car is not aligning to mine anymore. And it's hard work to even get to that point to make that decision and then move on from it. So,
The interpersonal neurobiology lens would say that person's inner world does not feel safe enough to do the work, so you have to trust other people's capacity.
mm,
Can't push other people more than even if you know the other side is wonderful and the work is worth it, you have to trust people where they're at and honor their own capacity.
yeah, I mean, getting people to do the work is a dangerous course that not everybody wants to do. And I applaud anyone that is willing to do that effort just for you. do something for you by doing the work, dissecting, and feel, like you said in the beginning, a little bit of gratitude, a little bit of thankfulness, and you get yourself in a better mind state. But for everyone out there that's interested, please pick up the Safe and Attachment Informed Guide to Building a More Secure Relationship. You can also pick up her first book, Anxiously Attached, out there. Thank you very much, Jessica Baum, LMHC. She's an amazing licensed therapist. Jessica, it was a delight to have you, and I am so happy to have you as a guest today.
Thank you. Thank you for asking such great questions, and it was a great interview. I hope this was helpful.
Thank you for tuning in to the Tranquility Magazine podcast. Please take a moment to become a subscriber. We are here to help you with your body, mind, and spirit. We want to thank our team for helping create every episode and content at tranquilitymagazine.com. Find us on our social media to stay up to date and informed. We always appreciate your engagement and feedback.